Imagine this. You have 15 minutes to prep an adventure for like 10 players using a tabletop role-playing game system they have never played before, and they all have to make their own new characters. Truthfully, if you're running 5e or even Pathfinder, this might be possible, but character creation with that many brand new players would easily soak up an hour of your game time. And this chance to have a fun evening actually playing an RPG would start to slip away. But lucky for us, there are other games besides 5e and even besides Pathfinder, so this scenario is possible. How do I know? Because I recently had the immense pleasure of sitting at a table with almost 10 players making new characters for a simple D20 fantasy RPG system that none of us had played before, and laughing my way through a fun adventure that the GM created in under 15 minutes. In fact, the system was so fun and intuitive that even though I was completely new to it, I ran a session with it the very next day. So I'm going to share this game with you. Because I'm Bob, this is where we learn how to have more fun playing RPGs together, and the perfect RPG for introducing total noobs to the world of D&D-like games is Cairn. It's literally free, $0 on DriveThruRPG as a PDF, but if you want to use the affiliate link below to pick up this PDF bundled with the softcover zine version, it's only a couple bucks. And this video is not sponsored, by the way. I was just blown away by how smooth this game went under those conditions I described. Although, it definitely helped that we had an awesome, experienced GM running this introductory session, none other than fellow RPG YouTube person Baron DeRomp of Dungeon Masterpiece. And at the end of this video, I'm gonna link to his video about preparing the session, but let's dive in. Cairn is an adventure game for one facilitator, the Warden, and at least one other player. Players act as hardened adventurers exploring a dark and mysterious wood filled with strange folk, hidden treasure, and unspeakable monstrosities. For me, Spooky Forest is the brand of D&D that I like the most, but this setting doesn't really influence the material too much. Our adventure took place in a more of a coastal marshland environment, and it was all good. Like almost every other indie RPG I've discussed so far, Cairn is partially inspired by the works of Ben Milton, aka Questing Beast here on YouTube, but this one, and a lot of indie games, seem to borrow their core mechanics from Into the Odd by Chris McDowell. Cairn is technically classless, with character features being based primarily on what equipment they carry, and it is technically level-less, but characters can progress by obtaining more powerful equipment and increasing their stats over time. Character death can happen, unlike in stereotypical modern heroic fantasy, but unlike some stereotypical OSR games, Cairn specifically says, death is always around the corner, but it is never random or without warning. And you will see how the mechanics reinforce that concept. Other than those ideas, it follows most of the not stereotypical, but absolutely true OSR principles, like conversation over dice rolls, the GM is a neutral referee, and the narrative emerges through player choices, and the party must work together. It has another page of principles for the Warden, loaded with straightforward game advice, and a similar page for the players. Then we get to character creation, and to show you just how easy it is, let's roll up a character right now. First, choose or roll your PC's name. I'll just do a surname, Glass. That's a cool last name. And their background, which informs their potential knowledge and skills. Also a 9, Herbalist. That's cool. Next, roll the rest of your character's traits. You don't have to use all of these traits in here, so let's just go with physique, flabby, their hair, frizzy, their speech, droning, and their reputation, respected. Nice. And for stats, player characters have just 3 attributes: strength, dexterity, and willpower, the very same stats used in Skate Wizards and many other games based on Into the Odd and Maze Rats. This book says we can swap 2 of the 4 stats, but we will go with 3d6 down the line, as good old Crom intended. 3, 3, 6, 12 for strength, nice. 8 for dexterity, and 9 for willpower. And here's another slight twist. Roll 1d6 to determine your PC's starting hit protection, HP, which reflects their ability to avoid damage in combat. HP does not indicate a character's health or fortitude, nor do they lose it for very long. See healing on page 11. We'll cover those rules in a minute. For now, 1d6. 1. And starting gear. All PCs begin with 3 days rations, 1 slot, a torch, 1 slot, and 3d6 gold pieces. Ooh, 15 gold. Then roll once on each of these starting gear tables on page 7 to determine your PC's armor, tools, and equipment. Armor, 11 gives me brigandine, which is the most common in that range, 4 to 14. Basically more historical leather armor, as I understand brigandine. Helmet and shield, none, which is also the most common result. Weapons, 16. I can choose between a longbow, crossbow, and sling. Gotta go for the bow. Expeditionary gear gives me a pick, cool. Tools, chalk, and trinkets, fake jewels. That's nice. Oh, and bonus item. 9. More expeditionary gear. Another 5. A dowsing rod. Okay. And that's it. We have created our character. Of course, you can pick and choose these elements if you want, and the book offers packages of predetermined equipment to better reflect traditional character classes if you want to go that route. The next couple pages include the stats and gold value of these items, which is important because if you have the coin and available inventory slots, you can purchase more items. For our game, I bought a large sponge simply because I had never seen that on an equipment list before, and by golly, that sponge led to some goofy jokes. Since I had the magician background, my character introduced himself by making a puddle of water magically disappear with the sponge. There were also jokes about me being SpongeBob, and for flavor, the sponge is what saved my character's life when I fell 100 feet off a flying dragon at the end and rolled exactly what I needed to survive. Speaking of gameplay, the key information is that Cairn is a D20 roll under system. Meaning, if I want to attempt something using my character's strength ability, I roll 1d20, and if I roll under my strength stat, I succeed. The higher your strength, the easier it is to roll under and succeed. So it's very intuitive, and so is combat. I don't even know if it has rules for initiative. We just went around the table because that is the best way to do it, especially if you have a large group. And on your turn, your character can move 40 feet, a little faster than D&D, but whatever, and take an action, like moving again, casting a spell, making an attack, or anything you want to try that the GM says is okay. The real fun part is that every attack always hits, so this game is constantly flowing and gameplay feels so smooth. So between this quick character creation, the intuitive rolling under, and not needing to make attack rolls, hopefully you're seeing how this game is extremely easy to learn regardless of your experience with TTRPGs. So let's say I'm attacked by a bandit. They just roll damage. 1d6 for most weapons, and they hit me for 5 damage. First, that 5 damage is negated by my armor. Brigandine has a value of 1, so 1 of those points is negated. Then, the damage is reduced by my hit protection, which was also only 1. But unlike my armor, which just absorbs that no problem, this damage reduces my hit protection. So my 1 HP goes to 0, and there are 3 points of damage remaining. After the combat, I can restore my hit protection very easily. Resting for a few moments or having a drink of water restores lost HP but leaves the party exposed. Now in a case like this, where the attack exceeds my armor and my HP, or if my HP were already at 0 from a previous attack and I'm hit again, now I start losing health. And this amount, that remaining 3 in my case, comes right out of my strength score. That's why the character sheet leaves a little space for your max strength and your current strength. And when I lose these 3 points from my strength, taking that damage, I have to roll under my new strength score. And if I succeed, I can keep fighting, even though I'm at 0 HP, because it's hit protection, not hit points. If I roll over my new strength, failing that roll, I drop. I'm not dead though, but I can not pretty much do anything except crawl weakly, grasping for life. If given aid and rest, they will stabilize. If left untreated, they die within the hour. So even here, there is a good window of time for that character to survive. It's all going to depend on the morals of the enemy you're facing and whether or not your allies can get you out of harm's way. In our game, only 1 PC died at the very end because they also fell off the dragon with my character, but unfortunately, they did not make the miraculous roll like I did. I mean, they didn't have a giant sponge to cushion the fall. So one more time. Attacks always hit, just roll damage. If the target has armor, that armor value negates some damage. If that target has HP above 0, that HP value cancels itself out with some of the damage. As far as I can tell, if a monster hits 0 HP, they just die. But if a player character hits 0 HP, any remaining damage comes out of their strength score, and they must roll under it to stay on their feet. One little addition is if an attack drops a PC's hit protection to exactly 0 without going beyond and into strength, the PC takes a scar. And the scars are cool because most of them actually lead to increasing your character's stats. Therefore, surviving combat still translates to character advancement. Pretty cool. Like other OSR games, Cairn has simple rules for hiring henchmen to aid the party and for using morale checks to see if henchmen or monsters would flee from a battle. There's a nice and clean rule for dual weapon fighting. If attacking with 2 weapons at the same time, roll both damage die and keep the single highest result. Similarly, there's a combat rule kinda like advantage and disadvantage, but more like the Dungeon Crawl Classics dice chain, where you use a bigger die, specifically the D12, if your attack in Cairn is enhanced for whatever reason, basically just like advantage. Or use a smaller die, the D4, if your attack is impaired. And the final piece of what makes Cairn special for me is the spellcasting. Remember, there are no classes. Features are based on equipment. So in Cairn, anyone can be a spellcaster as long as they have a spellbook. Kinda like Skyrim. I love it. The catch is that a spellbook takes up a slot in your inventory, and you're supposed to hold it in both hands while casting. So it means you can't carry as much other equipment, like a bunch of weapons, but this also organically makes your character more like a traditional fantasy spellcasting character. And this idea goes a little further, because every time you cast a spell, you gain 1 level of fatigue. Yes, fatigue in Cairn is basically exhaustion in 5e, but rather than having some weird effects that no one can remember most of the time, fatigue just fills one of your inventory slots. As in, spellcasting drains some of your energy so you can't carry as much stuff. It makes sense. And unless I run out of room in my inventory, I can cast from my spellbook over and over. Of course, characters can also gain fatigue in other ways, just like characters would gain levels of exhaustion. For spellbooks, there's a D100 table of very short spells, many of which apparently come right out of Ben Milton's Knave. That is the true power of the Creative Commons license. But be warned, the spells are the trickiest part of this game when read by my D&D 5e brain. For example, 27, Elasticity. Your body can stretch up to 10 feet. Okay, nice, very cool spell. But it leaves me with a million questions. 10 feet wide, 10 feet tall, 10 feet wide and tall like a human bedsheet, and if I can basically take this form of a giant humanoid flying squirrel, can I also glide on the wind? And when I'm stretched out, what happens to my clothes and my gear if I'm wearing or carrying? And if I can stretch myself big, can I stretch myself small, like a spaghetti noodle and slip through the keyhole of a door? And on a very basic level, how long does the spell even last? A minute, an hour, a day? It just doesn't say. Now, not having written answers like that could trip up a lot of players and GMs, and ultimately it comes down to this preference between strict rules as written play, which D&D is designed for, versus lighter rulings over rules gameplay, which many indie games are designed for. So the writing is not the problem. All it means is that these simply worded spells allow for a wide range of interpretation by the player and the GM. And as long as you're playing in a group with kind and reasonable people, you can have a ton of fun imagining and reimagining what these spells can do. One more example, my magician character had a spellbook for attract. 2 objects are strongly magnetically attracted to each other if they come within 10 feet. And I tried to use this spell to pull a bandit off a ledge by attracting his belt to a ladder below him. Since we were in combat, I had to roll under my will score to succeed, and I ended up just accidentally ripping this guy's pants off. So if the Cairn RPG sounds fun to you, give this video a thumbs up, share it with your game group, then go watch this video about Baron's 15-minute session prep with this system, and go download the PDF. It's free. Thanks for your support, and keep building.